Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Is Tesla still a bargain to buy if the stock price is at $400? You hear some people say it is, even though we're still quite far from that price today. Well, if the stock is at $1,000 or $2,000 in a few years, or even by the end of this decade, then buying at $400 a day is still a good price. But we've already seen Tesla at $400 before. It sure felt like it had a lot higher to go back then. I personally thought it could have hit $2,000 pre-split price the way it was headed, and was even vocal about this being my target price to sell the majority of my stock, as it gives me a really exuberant retirement, and only needed to rise about another 50-60% to hit there from its high. But how could a 400 seemed like a good price when today we aren't even at 250? What has happened? What changed so much? Well, we had 30% margins back then, along with $50,000 ASPs, with an annual run rate of 1.2 million and a waiting list of about 6 months or so for Model Y. Well, when you factor in 2 massive new factories that alone look like they could double that run rate and ramp as fast, or if not faster, than the Shanghai Model Y had due to the new production techniques, namely cell-to-vehicle integration with structural battery packs. Then on top of that, a revolutionary new cell that would not only be produced fast enough to keep up with this production ramp, but would also reduce costs by a further $5,000, at least, while also potentially increasing range. Well, the numbers add up quickly, and it doesn't take long until you can justify a $2 trillion valuation, assuming about a $15,000 gross profit per vehicle at $2.5 million run rate, which was around where we were told we would hit sometime last year, at least from what Battery Day implied. And from there, an 8-fold increase in production still to come over the next decade, and the numbers get crazy. We didn't need to believe or hope FSD was coming, as it was hard to quantify and judge when it would be ready. If it gets solved, then it just added a huge bonus. The EV sales were going to be big enough, except it didn't quite pan out like we'd been told. Since then, Tesla have sidestepped this future. It's rarely even mentioned anymore. Those 2 factories are just going along at around volume production now, not producing the mega quantities we hoped, but at least no longer cash furnaces. Although I still think the gross margins are low for those factories, and when they're able to ramp, the costs will have a lot more economies of scale remaining. Anyway, those numbers still looked insane with just around 2.5 million units a year. Sure, because the margins were insane. However, now Tesla have a new vision and a different path. Tesla are looking at an LFP future in the meantime until 4680 cells are solved. Elon said he thought 4680s could get down to around $70 a kilowatt hour. I would guess that Tesla and CATL, with the latest technology, are something like $90 a kilowatt hour. That's a bit of a guess, so if anyone has a better idea, then let me know, but I would guess it would be in that ballpark, if you included a massive custom factory with economies of scale. But the main thing is the new production technique. We all heard Elon say it. Half the cost of a Model 3. And I think everyone is assuming below $20,000 for such a vehicle, probably more like $17,000 in cost of goods sold per vehicle. This is an absolutely huge deal, the biggest thing going for Tesla aside from how you judge FSD. But unfortunately, Elon has said a lot of things like this that have also not come into fruition, or we are still waiting for after many years. Hey, I would love to be excited about this, as many of you are, and salivating at the mouth to see such a low-cost vehicle and thus a massive profit to accompany it. But we'll have to wait and see. I've learned not to make massive bets on the chances of these things happening as early as we are told, no matter how convincing and confident the CEO may sound. Sure, we got an animated version of how this cost-saving technique will occur, similar to how the structural battery pack will work. And also, when Elon says half the price of a Model 3, I don't think he actually means the Model 3 itself could be built at half the price. I think he is referring to something like a compact, and the actual design of the car will likely look a lot different to a traditional vehicle, like how the Cybertruck didn't look like your typical pickup truck. The car will be designed around manufacturing first in order to get the cost low enough by making things simple to manufacture. For example, look at a Toyota Corolla compared to a BMW 3 Series. There's a reason the BMW looks better, because it costs more to manufacture, due to less simplicity. I actually have a theory that after manufacturing, it will be designed around FSD next, as in the best hardware vehicle for FSD, able to have better vision around it, stop faster, and shorter front to see more oncoming traffic at intersections, etc. Then third, I think it will be designed around function, application, and practicality, as it's highly possible this will be the robotaxi car, given that it's literally the only label Elon has actually given for this car. And then perhaps fourth, it will actually be designed around aesthetics. Anyway, if we are indeed at a cost of $20,000 per vehicle, then hey, we're back to where we were before. As in $15,000 gross profit per vehicle. What do I mean? Well, this is going to be the $25,000 car, right? Except $25,000 minus $20,000 cost is just $5,000 gross profit. Sure, but add on $7,500 tax credit, of which will become a rebate by this stage. Then the car is actually $32,500 sale price for Tesla, despite costing $25,000 to the consumer. And there'll be about a further $2,000 or so in subsidies for the battery and cell per vehicle. And $25,000 would be a standard version. There'll be extras like wheels, possibly different paint options unless it's stainless steel, a longer range version perhaps, which may be more expensive. Perhaps optional trims. Oh, and of course the upgrade of FSD. Meaning there should actually be more than $15,000 gross profit per sale. And like we were saying before, when the numbers looked so good, if Tesla could hit just $2.5 million a year of basically Model 3s and Ys, well, Elon says these will be more like $5 million a year. Sure, that's likely the van included in there too, but the van will also use the same Gen 3 manufacturing and will also likely carry a higher price tag, and thus potentially even higher gross profits per vehicle sold. So what does all this depend on? Well, it depends on how much you believe Elon when he says half the cost of a Model 3 and 5 million units a year, and whether they can achieve the parallel production line. Likely a production technique they have been testing and researching for some time. Then, if Mexico is up and running in about a year, perhaps another year to ramp and expand, and then another year to ramp that expansion, perhaps 3 years or so total, and Elon announcing another factory soon, which is possibly India, perhaps a year behind Mexico, would mean 4 years and those two factories are expanded and ramping, and we could see about 4 million units a year from those factories, supposedly at these new low production costs, in addition to everything else Tesla would have achieved by then. However, the price for other markets will not be as low as the US due to not having as big as subsidies, but subsidies don't appear to be phasing out in most markets. It sounds like Europe plan on their own equivalent of the Inflation Reduction Act for EVs too. It just takes time over there. But margins may not be quite as high as the units sold in the US from Mexico. However, 4 or 5 million units is a lot. Also, by this stage, we would really hope for some massive gains in technology when it came to FSD. However long it does take doesn't matter entirely for the stock price. It's about how long the stock market believes it would take, and how patient the market is willing to wait, and the stock will act accordingly. Sometimes it will get hasty, other times it will be patient, and we will see events along the way that will impact the market's belief. Seeing it set in motion, though, will be the biggest impact. From there, it's all about when or if Tesla will get these costs down to as low as Elon suggested. If they're not there soon enough, the Tesla bull narrative will likely change, and they'll start saying things like, "You were foolish to think Elon meant instantly the cost would be less." Just like they're saying now that you were foolish if you thought 4680s would ramp up as much as Elon told us on Battery Day. Either way, if Tesla are gross profiting $15,000 from just 4 million units a year, that's $60 billion gross profit, on top of the rest of the business, which should have probably grown to around at least $20 billion in earnings, including energy, Cybertruck, Berlin, Texas ramp, and probably slightly lower interest rates, which probably comes to something like $60 billion net, or $2 to $3 trillion valuation with a PE ratio of 30 to 50, of which it would probably fluctuate over something like that. That's also without FSD being solved yet, and the more that improves, the likely more believable it becomes, which likely puts the PE ratio higher and higher. And surely over a few more years, it can only improve a lot more. So yeah, with those kinds of numbers, perhaps Tesla will be a bargain at $400 still, if the market starts to believe everything I said was possible over the next few years, and that's without any new products or factories announced, aside from the potential new one in India.
Hi
Thanks
there.
for listening.
I'm using Verbalate AI video translation and lip sync software. It's pretty amazing. Watch this.
I can translate my videos into other languages. For example, I am now speaking Hindi.
नमस्ते, मैं पहली बार हिंदी में बोल रहा हूं, लेकिन वर्बलेट इसे इतना आसान बना देता है.
Or how about Spanish?
Hola, vaya, increíble.
También puedo hablar español.
Sign up at verbalate.ai today to gain early access to trial the product for creators and strategic partners, and gain the ability to translate and lip sync videos in all major languages. You can view the info in the description below.